Welcome to Wealth Builders with our host, Anthony Cangemi. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. Anthony, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I'm excited about this one, and I'll tell you why. I love this topic because it's questions. We're going to go through questions everybody asks or should be asking to be ready for retirement. You call it, I love what you call it, the retirement ready IQ test. Are you ready for retirement? How do you answer these questions? We'll get into that in a minute. But you and I were talking before the show. I can't wait to get out there. You've got a lot of things coming up. We're headed into the summer months. How have you been, Anthony? I know you've been really busy.
Yeah, been busy, Tony, but we really are looking forward to you coming. I tell you,
Oh, yeah.
we
That'll
get
be
so much out of you being here with us, Tony. I
Sure.
can't say enough. And yeah, we've got a lot going on and coming up. We have been busy. One of the things with the retirement ready questions we'll be talking about and the retirement ready breakfasts that series that we started, one of the things that, and I hate to say this, but I do want to bring it out because it just seems to become more prevalent lately is these, these online scams and things that, people are, it almost seems like once or twice a week, we'll have a client call and say some account has been compromised, not an investment account, but a lot of, times checking accounts, savings accounts at the bank.
Yep.
And then debit cards, Tony. I don't know what it is with debit people buy these gift cards, rather, not
gift
debit
cards.
Yeah. So a lot. So the reason why I bring it up is because we started this retirement ready breakfast series, and one of the main topics we're going to be discussing in this meeting coming up is on cybersecurity, and so keeping an eye on that. But yeah, we've been busy, Tony. It's been good. We got into the summer months. It's of course hot here in New Orleans. How is it there in Minnesota? I guess it's
it's not like Nolens, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
Nolens is really hot right now, and I know that. But you know what? We've had unseasonably high temperatures here. We've had a couple of weeks in the 80s. We even hit, I believe we had 87 or 88 here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul cities area in central Minnesota. And that's warm for here for May. And June, headed into June, but it is warming up. Today it's a little cooler, but yeah, we're into full summer. This is the beautiful time to be here.
Really?
I think today it's going to be sunny and 75 probably.
Oh, wow.
With little humidity. Now we do get the humidity, not quite as much as there, but it'll get up to 85, 90 with humidity here. Yeah, but that's only in July and August typically.
Most of the seasons though are pretty workable, except for I guess in the winter months.
Well, winter months are tough, and we have more winter months than most states. I mean, winter really can start as early as October, and it can run as late as the first week in May. So that's a long stretch of time to have to worry about snow and cold. However, it's hit and miss. Sometimes, we've been pretty nice up until December sometimes.
Okay.
But then I'll tell you what, January and February are usually the two worst months for
the
cold
two
and
worst
snow.
months.
Yeah. But yeah, we're doing good. I've been busy as well. I'm trying to build a patio and a screened-in porch, kind of a catio for the cats also to go outside the house and hang out. My wife's really been pushing me to get that done. It ended up being a bigger project than I thought because when I started, it was just for the cats. Then I'm like, well, let me make a patio deck and let me make this thing a screened-in porch with a door that we can go in and out. So it kind of turned into a thing.
Into it, then all of a sudden it becomes a real project.
It does, and of course money, which we're going to talk about. We need to plan for this, but get it done before we get into retirement is what I say. Speaking of that, Anthony, let's jump into this. You have this great questionnaire that you give to people you meet with, and our listeners, if they want to get this, they should fill this out. It's called the Retirement Ready IQ Test. I'm looking at it right now. It's great. You just answer these 10 questions, and it's on a point system, whether you answer yes or no. Do you know these things? You don't have to write out answers, but you
No.
just say, do I know this? And the answer to
Yeah.
this, yes or no. And
Right.
I think most people probably don't know the exact answer to these questions, but you need to before you retire, if at all possible, or at least early into your retirement, have a good idea. Um,
Absolutely.
so let's start with the first one, and I'll ask you the question, Anthony, and then you can tell me and the listeners out there why it's important to know the answer. This is one I know you get asked a lot from people to help them with. And the first question is, do you know how much income you're going to need in retirement?
Yeah, so that is a foundational question, Tony, as you could imagine.
Sure.
And this is really one of the questions, the primary questions that we try to get answered when we first meet with someone.
Sure.
That when do you plan on retiring? And then the follow-up question is this question, which is, have you considered how much income, and then let's just say net income after taxes and insurance, how much income, spendable income, do you feel you will need in retirement? And yes, it's a very important question to ask. And, I might add, Tony, to this that, there's some very sophisticated, let's say, ways to go about answering this question. There's all sorts of accounting software and Quicken and looking at expense report. What are you spending money on, and categorizing, your expenditures to try to come up with an answer.
Sure.
But frankly, what I've discovered and noticed with this question is that the simpler way to try to start getting a good answer to how much income am I going to need in retirement, the simpler way, and frankly, I think even potentially the more accurate way, is to just look at what you're bringing in now. What do if you're getting paid, whether it be once a week or twice a week, after the taxes and insurance and everything comes out of your check, what are you bringing home? And that's a great way to start, because it really gives us an idea about what your lifestyle, what you're used to living on. How about
Sure.
that?
Sure.
And so, yeah, but it's definitely, now, of course, there may be some additional expenses because you want to do some travel and you want to do some other things. So I'm not
But
saying
there's
that's
also some things that might be removed out of that. If you're getting a paycheck every couple of weeks or a certain amount a month from your job, once that job stops, there may be some adjustments, some things, some of that money, you may have been some of your take home pay, you might have been saving into an emergency account that maybe you don't have to anymore. It's always good to keep that account up.
right.
But there may be some things money was going toward that you can eliminate to help offset the travel. But you're right. Most people right away in retirement are going to want to go do things, take the grandkids to Disney World or travel the first couple of years. So you'll probably need all of it. So that's a great way. Just look at your, not even what did we spend this month? What are you bringing into your checkbook? Not your gross amount pay each
No.
month, but your net amount that comes into that checking account or that's automatically deposited each week. What is
Right.
that amount, and
Mhm.
how can you solve for that in retirement? That's a great idea.
It's a great way to start, Tony. It's a great way to start trying to formulate a number, because ultimately, when you do retire, the transition is already, a little unnerving. No, you
Oh
haven't
yeah.
retired before, so you're trying to make this transition, and you want it to be as smoothly as possible, and certainly not shortchanging yourself on the amount of income that's needed, not only for your expenses, but lifestyle. We're thinking lifestyle and with this question as well.
Sure. And it's going to be different for everyone. Do you know how much income you'll need in retirement? Everyone has different goals. Some
Absolutely.
people might say, well, I need to take out I'm going to need $100,000 to buy a camper. Well, that would set you back. You might want to put it on payments and look at the situation, but how much down? You don't want to be pulling out too many big chunks of money out of those accounts right away. But again, that's where planning comes in. And speaking of planning, that's where our second question comes in. And the second question, Anthony, is do you have a written retirement plan?
Yeah, that's so important. Like the old saying, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And
Right.
and having a written plan, having a core baseline of a written retirement plan is so important, Tony. And of course, as you know, that's one of the things that we do here at Crescent City Retirement Group. Our clients, all of our clients, have a very structured, very strategic plan with the different reports that we're continuing to update, whether it be the financial overview or the Rule of 100 or the Retirement Compass, Social Security Strategy Report, Maximization Report. We're constantly updating those reports. It's one thing to have a written plan and then to maintain that plan through client reviews. But having a written retirement plan is so important to ensure that you're not leaving any stone left unturned. And let me just say real quick, Tony, because that question about income, I recall a client of mine saying a while back, and I said, boy, I love this. And I think our listeners will get it. We were talking about, when people retire, they may want to do some traveling to see the grandkids, and maybe they're a little bit more active, in the first years of retirement, and then maybe not so much later on. So my client said, Anthony, she said, the first 10 years of our retirement are going to be the go-go years. And then she said, the second 10 years, well, they can be the slow go years. And then she said, now in the third 10 years of retirement, that'll be the no-go years. And so what she was saying is those first 10 years of retirement, being younger, right? And being probably more, let's face it, a 65-year-old is going to be more active than maybe a 75-year-old.
Yeah.
So getting some of the travel and some of the bucket list stuff off the charts in the beginning stages is good. You have your health, you have your vitality. And so structuring your distribution plan where it allows for some of those extras in the first, let's say, leg of retirement is really what's the idea there.
Sure. And that makes perfect sense. And I think that the written plan is so important. And people think,
100%.
oh, I have a plan. I've got a 401k. No, that's not a written retirement income plan and a retirement plan looking at the big picture. And I know that's what you provide people you work with is a written plan that has it all drawn out. Now, the third question is, are you confident your savings is going to last a lifetime? So in other words, I don't want my bank account to hit zero before my blood pressure does. Right?
Can I use that one, Tony?
Yeah,
That's
you
good.
can use that one. You can use
That's
an old Tom Lowry guy I used to know. Always used to say that. Tony, you don't want your bank account
your
to
bank
hit
account
zero.
to hit zero before your blood pressure.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That is good. So yeah, and Tony, when you think about it, when we're running these retirement compasses, as I know you know so well, if again somebody retiring at 65 and we're running a plan to 95 or 100, you're talking about a 30 to 35 year distribution strategy that we're running. We're running our plans out to 100. And
Yeah.
so
It's huge.
Yeah. So the distribution plan and ensuring that you are, getting what you need, what you want, but not over extending the withdrawals and potentially running out of money is what we're talking about here
Sure. Sure.
is so important, Tony.
Yeah.
And so that's why having a written plan, having a structured distribution strategy, and which of course as time marches on can be adjusted for all sorts of things that may come up, but you do want to have a written plan and you want it maintained on a semi-annual basis to constantly be reviewing your plan,
Yeah.
which is a big part of our service.
Sure. And that's huge. So let's talk about the next question on the list, because this is a big one. And it is, do you understand how market changes could impact your plan? Do you have a grasp on that? Is that a part of your retirement plan? Yes or no? Do you understand how the markets, we could have a drop or a correction. They've been up and down. So, uh, what would you say to somebody about that? Why is that important to understand?
Well, the reason it's important, Tony, is when you think about the accumulation phase of a person's financial life, as you are today, right, and I
Right.
am today, we're working and saving, working and saving.
Sure.
So you're putting money in. When you get into retirement or that distribution phase, you're not putting money in anymore. You're taking money out. So with the market, if you are depending on a majority of your distributions to be coming from accounts that are subject to the market, right? And the market happens to be down or in some type of, the economy, has a pullback and it
Sure.
lasts for a period of time. Pulling money out of those accounts while the values are down is really a nail in the coffin, Tony. Just
Oof. Yeah.
just as much as we talk about dollar cost averaging and putting money in to a portfolio when the market's down can be a good thing, right? You're buying shares at a better price. But the flip side of that is if you're pulling money out of a portfolio while the share prices are down, then you don't own those shares when the market recovers. So, with all that said, in your written retirement plan, you have to look at what percentage of your income is actually coming from the stock market.
Yeah.
So, Social Security or strategies for Social Security, it's a government pension. I mean, it's a structured income. Annuities are structured income. People have pensions, private pensions.
Yeah.
There's bonds and distribution planning where you can structure a lot of your retirement income that is not subject to market volatility.
Sure.
Some money can be coming from the market, but the question is, what percentage is appropriate? We
Yeah.
do know if we're running plans for the next 30, 35 years out, let's
Hmm.
face it, we know the markets are going to be up and there's going to be
Yep.
times when the market's going to be down. So it shouldn't be any surprise that the markets are going to be volatile. The question is, what have we done inside the plan so we're not subject to pulling money out of the wrong accounts at the wrong time?
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, if you're pulling out of the wrong accounts at the wrong time when the markets are down, you're going to deplete your money faster and
Correct.
run into a bigger chance that you'll run out of money in retirement or deplete those funds. So, I think the next big question and the next one on your list is: have you planned for health care and long term care in retirement? Have you planned for those costs in retirement? And I know a lot of people are probably guilty of this, like I was until I started working with you and understood. People think Medicare is going to take care of me in retirement. I don't need to worry about, I'm not going to spend that much money on health care or long term care. That's a
Yeah,
big misnomer, isn't it?
it really is, Tony. And I'm a big fan of Medicare. I mean,
Oh, well,
Medicare,
sure. It helps out a lot. I mean, that's huge. Medicare is good. but it doesn't, there's still a large cost.
Well, as a large, yeah, really what it is just comparing apples and oranges. I mean,
Sure.
Medicare is medical care, so it's hospitals and doctors. Medicare was never designed to be a long-term care plan. And
Right.
long-term care, Tony, as you know, is when you are discharged from the hospital and you need to get into lower levels of care,
Mhm.
like intermediate and custodial care. People may need sitters to come to the house
Right.
to help with
Right.
activities of daily living, or
Right.
maybe an assisted living facility, or even a nursing home.
Right.
But Medicare pays very, very little for that type of care.
Sure.
And so ultimately, yes, it can be a pretty large expense, Tony, as somewhere in the neighborhood of between 7 and 9,000 a month for costs of nursing home or assisted
Yeah.
living and that sort of thing. And so that really can affect your overall retirement plan if you don't have a plan in place to help offset some of those costs if either you or a spouse needs that type of care.
And if you don't plan, you need to even plan out Medicare, and and you either probably need a supplemental or Advantage plan to cover the things Medicare doesn't. In addition to long-term care, vision, hearing, dental, things like that,
Yeah.
that are not covered by Medicare. Plus, there's still premiums, co-pays, minimum out of pockets. Sometimes there's minimums, so you do have a lot of costs involved. People think it's all 100% free and covered. It's not.
No,
You
no.
have to have a plan in place. And I know your team has helped so many people figure this out. Medicare can get complicated, the different parts. It's alphabet soup. We've done whole shows on that. But that's a good one. Let's talk about the next one. And this is one we've talked about too, and that's taxes. Do you have a tax efficient withdrawal and transfer strategy for your retirement income?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one, Tony, because we talk a lot about income and healthcare and estate planning and legacy planning and all of this, and taxes really infiltrate all of that. Taxes can get involved in your Medicare premiums. Taxes can get involved in where you're pulling money out and what the overall tax liability is. Being tax efficient in your retirement plan is really critical, Tony. And
Yeah,
that's why part of our process is continually running these tax reports, tax planning reports to make sure that we are taking distributions in the most tax efficient way. As you know, depending on the type of accounts that someone has is going to determine the tax implications. If it's Roth IRAs, it's tax free. If it's traditional IRAs or 401ks that are pre-tax, it's all taxed as ordinary income. And then you have after tax accounts that are dividends and interest and qualified dividends and all of this are taxed differently as well.
sure.
Social Security is taxed differently. So how it all pulls together, Tony, to make a tax efficient distribution strategy is really critical. I mean, to the tune of over a person's lifetime, and then passing assets on could be in the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars,
Hundreds
Tony.
of thousands of dollars,
Yes.
the difference it could make between having a proper tax strategy and not.
Yes.
That's you can't stress the importance enough. Well, we have about 4 left here, and we're gonna buzz through a couple of these because, we've talked a lot about them in the past, but the next one is, have you reviewed your Social Security options, or thought about maximizing your Social Security? And I think a lot of people just think, well, I'll take it when I'm 62 or I'll take it when I'm 67. You need to really have a strategy for and look at your personal situation. Don't just do what your brother did, right? Or your friend,
Oh,
your neighbor.
right, of course, Tony. And the thing is, if income planning is the foundation of a retirement plan, Social Security planning is the foundation of the income plan. I
Sure.
mean, it really is. And there's different filing strategies, and depending on, especially if you're a married couple, what the strategies might be there, depending on the age difference and survivor benefits and all the rest of it. But there's another piece, Tony, that can be when you now, of course, as you know, the Social Security Maximization Report uses average life expectancy as a benchmark. So we don't know how long we're going to live, but we can use life tables and average life expectancy to start framing out the Social Security strategy. But what I can tell you is in the Social Security Maximization Report, it gives us four different scenarios. One, if you file at your earliest; one, if you wait to full retirement age; one, if you wait till you're 70 at the latest; and one optimization strategy. And what I can tell you is, Tony, in many cases, between the worst strategy, using an apples to apples comparison, everybody living and dying when they're supposed to, life
Sure.
expectancy,
Sure.
apples to apples of comparison, from the worst strategy to the best strategy can be hundreds of thousands of
Over
dollars
your retirement,
over your
it can
retirement.
really add up. So you don't want to make a mistake with Social
No,
Security. Now let's
no.
move on to the next one. And I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on this because we have in the past, and you have a great tool for this. But do you know your risk tolerance in today's market? What does that mean? Why is that question important?
It's very important because how your money is invested and the volatility. Some people are very conservative and they say, look, I don't ever want to open a statement and see any losses. Somebody else might say, hey, I'm okay with some ups and downs and bumps in the road. So risk tolerance is a very personal and individual thing, and we want to make sure that your investments are aligned well with your risk appetite.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and the next one is your investment strategy aligned with your retirement timeline? And I think this does kind of play into some of the earlier questions, right?
It does. If somebody, Tony, is 40 years old and they're going to retire at 65 and they have a 25-year time horizon before they're going to need to start drawing from their retirement, let's face it, they can be a little more assertive and a little more, I want to say, you know, um, a little more aggressive than somebody that's 60 years old and has maybe a 5-year time horizon. So your investment should be pairing not only with your risk tolerance, but the time horizon as to when we're going to be needing those funds according to your written plan.
Yeah, there you go. All right. And number 10, really quick here. Do you have a legacy or estate plan in place?
Ultimately, Tony, we want to live and enjoy our retirement. We want to make sure we have structured income where we can do the things we want to do. We want it to be tax efficient. We want to know that we can enjoy retirement. That's what we earned. That's what we deserve. That's what our clients deserve. We also want to know that what if we get sick, we're going to have quality care. And ultimately, after all said and done, we're going to do what? We're going to transfer our assets to our heirs.
Yes.
So our legacy, Tony, and
Right.
it's not just money, but it is money as well. And
Sure.
it is our legacy and our transition to the next generation. And that, Tony, has to be considered. There's certain assets that are much more tax efficient to pass on than others. And so having a coordinated distribution strategy and ultimately a transition strategy is just can't be overstated.
Well, it's huge, and that's these questions. All 10 of them are very important,
They
and
are.
I think you've pointed out some really big reasons why, and hopefully open the eyes of some of our listeners and viewers out there, Anthony. But before we go, We're out of time, but before we go, let our listeners and viewers know how they can get a copy of this Retirement Ready IQ test, take the test, or ask any questions about any of these. And if they need help with these questions, how they can get a hold of you and your team there at Crescent City.
Absolutely. So first of all, we have a telephone, and our phone number is, and call us 504-828-2171. We just love hearing from our radio audience. 504-828-2171. Tell Tiffany or one of the ladies in the office that you were listening to Tony and I, and you would like to get a copy of Retirement IQ. The other way is to simply just go online at www.crescentcityretirement.com. You can download the Retirement IQ right there on the website. So we really want to get this in your hands. We think there's power in questions. We have the top 20 questions we think all retirees should ask. We have the Retirement IQ, which are specific questions about where you stand in retirement. But we think questions are really king. And we want to make sure that we're arming our listening audience with good quality retirement planning questions so they can make good choices.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's all about. So, Anthony, thanks for a great show, going over each one of these 10 important questions everybody should be able to answer yes to. I know almost no one can initially without working with a trusted financial professional like yourself. So, listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Wealth Builders with our host, Anthony Cangemi.